After dissection, if you found live digynians or tapeworms and they're in saline, the next step is to heat kill them to allow them to properly relax prior to fixation. And these are some of the supplies you'll need for that process. So you have your worms, they're in saline in a small petri dish. The first step is to remove most of that saline. Now you don't want to remove all of the saline, as if you remove all of it, the worms will actually dry out and be of poor quality. You also don't want to remove too little of the saline, as if you do that, the water that you pour on it will actually cool down too rapidly, and the worms will contract slightly. They won't actually relax properly for morphological examination. So remove most of the saline. The next step is to then heat up water for the heat killing part. Now that I'm in the lab, I can use a Bunsen burner and an Erlenmeyer flask filled with water. However, if you're in the field, you don't have access to these pieces of equipment. In that case, I like to boil water during the morning, fill up a thermos, and then use that hot water throughout the day. And if you find that it's getting a little bit too cool, then you kind of refresh that water in that thermos. Now you want the water to be close to boiling, but not quite boiling, so it's steaming and bubbles a little bit. If it's a little bit too hot, the worms can rupture, and if it's a little bit too cold, the worms will contract and not relax properly. So you'll take that hot water. In this case, it looks a little bit too hot. However, it turned out to be okay. And so you'll take that water and you'll pour it onto the worms and you'll fill up that petri dish close to the top. Then you'll want to grab a pipette and swirl those worms around a little bit, and this helps release some of that mucus or other particulate matter that may be on the surface of those worms. And if they're tapeworms, it helps kind of stretch them out and relax them a little bit more. After that, you're ready for fixation. I like to use 70 or 80% ethanol, as it does a really good job for both morphological fixation as well as for later molecular work. And so you'll fix them in that 80% ethanol and store them in a -20 freezer, and they're good for molecular work for quite a long time. So you'll transfer those worms over with a pipette, trying to transfer over as little water as possible with the worms. If you transfer a little bit too much water, that's okay. Just let them sink to the bottom, remove most of that ethanol, and refresh that ethanol so you make sure that it's at least 70 to 80%. So one last time, these are the pieces of equipment you'll need for that heat killing. If you're in the lab or if you're in the field, you just need a thermos and you can boil water prior to the processing of your animals.